For every 3 litres we each consume for our showers, washing and drinking at home, nearly 1 litre is lost to leakage on its way to us. We all know about the sewage being dumped into our waterways, but the problem with our water industry affects every aspect from start to finish, so how can we fix it? Hello everyone. In this video I'll be speaking about the water industry, as it's another area that has downstream impacts across the whole of the UK. Its costs affect our bills and the profitability of our businesses, impacting everything from restaurants to data centres. Water is essential. Across the UK, water companies are responsible for delivering clean drinking water to our homes and taking sewage away for treatment before release back into our waterways. This means that they own the reservoirs that store our water, they own filtering and cleaning facilities to make it safe for us, and the pipes to get that clean water to our homes. They then collect water from our homes through sewage and collect rainwater through the drains, meaning they also own pipes for taking water away from where we live, connecting it to water treatment facilities as well as our rivers and lakes so it can make its way to the sea as it would naturally. Sewage is always sent for treatment before being released to our rivers and lakes. Although in recent decades, water companies in England and Wales have been skipping this step frequently, which causes damage to the health of our wildlife, but also to our own health if we are in contact with the polluted water. The water companies also have the responsibility of preventing flooding from rainwater and burst pipes. Drainage is often sent directly into rivers, but it may be used for irrigation or used to help water treatment as well. There are 2 main systems for how these water companies are managed in the UK. In England and Wales they are managed by private companies, funded through our bills. In Scotland and Northern Ireland they are managed by publicly owned companies, funded through taxes, which makes a fantastic case study for nationalisation versus privatisation of our water industry. So how do the private systems of England and Wales compare to the public systems of Scotland and Northern Ireland? Let's start with the private water companies. Looking first at how much they cost, the average household in England and Wales pays £600 a year, rising to £640 in London, adding a burden to every household, worsening the cost of living. In customer satisfaction, 33% of Welsh households are unsatisfied with the quality of service provided by their water company. This increases to 45% of homes in England. In 2025, there was a single incident where 30,000 homes in England lost access to water altogether, the worst of many incidents and completely unacceptable in the modern era. Then there is water pollution. Only 30% of the bodies of water in Wales have a good ecological status or better, a measure that we have set up when leaving the EU to show how healthy, polluted and able to support life a water body is. In England, this figure drops to just 16%, meaning the vast majority of our lakes and rivers are polluted, affecting plant and animal life, recreation and tourism, and damaging our ecosystems across England and Wales. So how do the public systems compare? In both Scotland and Northern Ireland, the average household pays £450 a year on water, 25% less than their counterparts in England and Wales. In Scotland, households pay for water through council tax, so higher value properties pay more. In Northern Ireland, the government there pays for water which is funded through taxes. This more convoluted system has had some issues. New homes in Northern Ireland need to be funded somehow, whereas in Scotland, funding through council tax means it is linked to house building, making it simpler. Moving on to customer satisfaction. Northern Ireland is leading the way with only 14% of households dissatisfied with their services. Scotland next at 19%, both substantially better than in England and Wales. And finally, water pollution. Northern Ireland does have some issues, with just 32% of its water bodies of good ecological status or better. However, the majority of these cases are caused by runoff from farming. We have discussed this in our farming video already. Some of the solutions to reducing water pollution from farming runoff are very simple. If you haven't watched that video already, please go and check it out. Scotland is once again leading the way, with 66% of its bodies of water of good ecological status or better. This puts England last in every metric. Wales is third in every metric, and then Scotland and Northern Ireland have first or second across the board. showing the public sector runs the water companies more efficiently, and therefore cheaper, to a higher standard, all while keeping the environment cleaner and safer for us all to enjoy. This is not to mention the damage that privatisation has done to the industry. Shareholders bought the water companies at £3.7 billion, and since then have extracted £72.9 billion in dividend payments, while saddling the industry with debts of £65 billion, only investing a small amount funded mostly by our bills and not the money from shareholders. Thames Water have been so slow at investing, it has been estimated that at their current pace it will take them 357 years to replace all of their pipes that have an estimated lifespan of 50 years. All of this has caused a real terms drop in the value of the water sector of £85.2 billion since privatisation. So nationalised water in the UK is cheaper to run, pollutes less, and leaves customers more satisfied with the service they receive. But with our private water companies saddled with debt and valued at £90 billion, how could we afford to nationalise them? Well, actually, you might be surprised to learn we could nationalise the whole industry at no cost to the government while wiping out the debt at the same time. Because the water industry provides a national service, it is not allowed to go bankrupt, which means that in the case of its insolvency, all of its assets revert to government ownership, leaving the private companies with nothing but their debts. But we do not have to wait for this to happen naturally. Even though Thames Water is pretty close as it is, requiring an emergency loan to stay afloat, we can force their hands by requiring that private companies list their necessary upgrades and repairs as a liability on their balance sheet, sending all water companies into insolvency overnight. But unfortunately, nationalisation won't magically fix all of the issues. The necessary repairs and upgrades still need to happen across England and Wales, and they are estimated to cost £104 billion over 5 years. And although the vast majority of these upgrades are needed in England and Wales, Northern Ireland's system is struggling to grow, and there is still room for improvement in Scotland. With big questions around future rainfall and growing conditions, securing our water for the future is incredibly important. In order to give us a buffer to allow for conditions worse than the current predictions, we should add an extra £9.2 billion a year to this 5-year plan to go beyond the bare minimum in terms of repairs and upgrades. That means that we need to find £30 billion a year for 5 years to clean up our water industry. We could use the profits from our new nationalised water in England and Wales, the money that was previously paid out to shareholders in dividends, but I would much rather see that money go to reducing our bills. We do have £2.52 billion a year left over from the changes in our electric video. Check that out after this one if you haven't seen it already. So what can we do? Firstly, I believe we need to change our funding model across the UK, matching England, Wales and Northern Ireland's methods to that of Scotland. Raising money through council tax will help solve the issue Northern Ireland is having with expansion. New homes will automatically start contributing more to the water budget rather than the government having to find money through taxes on individuals. And across England and Wales, this will reduce the strain on low wealth households, shifting the burden to the wealthy. The council tax system as a whole is dated and needs updating, possibly with a land value tax, but we will speak in detail about that in another video at a later date. Then, once the 4 nations are aligned, we can lift the cap on the most expensive council tax bands by £1,000 a year on Band G and £2,000 a year on Band H. This will raise £1.6 billion a year for our water industry. Then, a 2.5% wealth tax on assets over £10 million, which would only affect 20,000 people. This would raise at least £30 billion a year, leaving us with an excess of £4.12 billion a year. So by building new reservoirs to store more water to see us through droughts and rising demand, fixing the pipes to reduce water loss from leakage, and upgrading treatment to prevent sewage being spilled into our waterways, we will reduce our bills, making us all better off, and making the UK a more attractive investment. We will secure our future for an even more unpredictable climate, and we will clean up our lakes, rivers and seas, improving both domestic and international tourism. Thanks so much for listening. Please do like this video if you enjoyed it, it really helps us out. And remember, there is a better alternative to the status quo. I'd love to hear your ideas for how we can work together to move into a brighter future in the comments. The new future is possible only if we all work together. See you next time and subscribe for more.